Banks of Newfoundland. 100 years before Columbus, the Basques crossed the Atlantic to find the richest fishing grounds in the world. In their wake came the Portuguese, the French, the Spanish, and the British. Newfoundland was to become the scene of 2 centuries of conflict between the British and the French, as each disputed the other's claim to the island. The political struggle has long passed into history. Only the eternal struggle with the elements still goes on. Salmon, tuna, haddock, and halibut, mackerel, turbot, herring, and sardine abound in these waters. But the biggest catch is cod. The Grand Banks fishermen take out more than 1 million tons of cod every year. When a Newfoundlander talks about fish, he means cod. Equally as important as fishing on the high seas is Newfoundland's inshore fishing. In the late spring, the young squid come inshore in their thousands. Squid is so plentiful in Newfoundland waters that it's become almost an emblem of the island. In mid-June, cod is lured inshore by the caplin, which are brought in by the tides after spawning time. They could be caught from the shore by anyone handy with a net. A stone's throw from his home, the inshore fisherman can pull in huge quantities of cod. His gear includes trawls, traps, and gill nets, as well as hook and line. In addition to the cod, there are, in season, large quantities of herring, salmon, and lobster to be caught. The sea reaches into the island through countless bays, creeks, and inlets. It touches the daily life of all Newfoundlanders and has formed the pattern of their lives for centuries. They have a fisherman's attitude to the sea, for their ancestors came here primarily as fishermen, not as mariners. A third of the population makes its living from fishing and its allied industries. At Black Duck Brook, they work as they have worked for centuries. The cod are split, gutted, washed, salted, and laid out to dry. These wooden platforms made of boughs are called flakes, a common sight along Newfoundland's shores. Drying fish like this in sun and wind is an ancient craft, perhaps as old as man. It seems simple, but care and patience are essential. Perhaps it is a dying craft, for many fishermen now deal directly with the freezing plants. The settlement of Newfoundland was a long, slow process, longer than most other colonies of the New World. The rocky, fog-bound coast did not seem as tempting as the adjoining waters, which were teeming with fish. The fishermen from Europe landed on the coast only to make repairs and take on fresh water for their voyage home. It was not until the 19th century that the island's potential was seen, and men looked inland beyond the forbidding shores. Traditionally, the whole family helps bring in the hay, but the rocky soil does not encourage many to farm for a living.
Mon Dieu, bénissez la au nom du Père, du Fils, je vous bénis tous, au nom du Père, du Fils et du Saint-Esprit.
Those islanders of French and Acadian descent are proud of their heritage. Black Duck Brook is a French-speaking community, though everyone can speak English too. At school, the children speak only English, and the older people wonder how long they can keep alive the language and traditions of their ancestors. Since their first fishing expeditions to Newfoundland, the Basques have been part of the island's history. Today they have come from the neighboring French islands of Saint-Pierre et Miquelon to take part in festivities marking the occupation of Placentia by the French 300 years ago. Placentia, called by the French Plaisance, was named by the Basques centuries ago when they first discovered the sheltered bay on the southeast corner of the island. The French built a fort at Placentia in 1662, and Louis XIV chose the town as his Newfoundland capital. 75 miles away, the British were established at St. John's. For 50 years, the two countries continued their struggle for supremacy of the island, until 1713, when by the terms of the Treaty of Utrecht, the French garrison at Placentia was evacuated, and France relinquished her claims to Newfoundland. But the controversy between the two countries continued over French rights to catch and actually go ashore to dry the fish. The matter was resolved when the islands of Saint-Pierre et Miquelon were returned to France in 1763. They have remained French ever since. The first white men to discover Newfoundland were the Vikings. Leif Erikson landed on the North Shore in the year 1000 and founded the settlement of Vinland. But the discovery and naming of the island is generally credited to John Cabot, the Venetian navigator. In the service of Henry VII of England, Cabot landed at Cape Bonavista in 1497. 5 years after Columbus's epic voyage, this much-visited island was officially discovered. And Terra Incognita became Terra Nova, Newfoundland. A 16th century map, viewed from north to south, shows a painstaking, if rather inaccurate, drawing of Newfoundland. The mapmaker was guided by notes and sketches provided by Cartier, who had explored the Newfoundland coast and found it to be an island. It was on the shores of the Straits of Belle Isle that Cartier came across the first Red Indians, the red-painted Beothics, a Stone Age tribe, which by the 19th century had become extinct. In 1583, the flag of England was raised at St. John's by Sir Humphrey Gilbert. Half-brother to Sir Walter Raleigh, Sir Humphrey took possession of the island in the name of Queen Elizabeth, despite the presence of the French not far away in Placentia Bay. This great natural harbor has for centuries provided a safe, ice-free anchorage for ships of all nations. During World War II, Placentia Bay was a strategic naval base, and it was here, aboard a battleship moored at Argentia, that Roosevelt and Churchill met to sign the historic Atlantic Charter. Called Britain's oldest colony, Newfoundland is also Canada's youngest province. In 1947, Newfoundlanders were given the choice of self-government, British rule, or union with Canada. Their final choice was confederation, and Newfoundland with Labrador became Canada's 10th province in 1949. According to geologists, the soil of Newfoundland is perhaps the oldest in the world. Sir Francis Bacon, the 16th century English philosopher, said, "The fisheries of Newfoundland are more productive than the mines of Peru." He could not have foreseen that one day the mines of Newfoundland would be a major part of the island's economy. And many Newfoundlanders now earn their living working in the flourishing mining industry. The island has substantial deposits of zinc, copper, lead, asbestos, gypsum, and fluorspar, while it supplies more than half the iron ore produced in Canada. In Newfoundland, if a man is not a miner or a fisherman, he may well be a lumberjack. Wood is Newfoundland's greatest source of revenue. The pulp and paper industry brings in more money than iron ore and fish. Northern Newfoundland is a barren, rocky area, but the west side of the island compensates for this with vast forests of conifers, which supply the raw materials for the pulp and paper mills. Thanks to paper, Corner Brook on the Gulf of St. Lawrence has, in the last 40 years, grown from a village of 300 to become the island's second largest city with a population of 30,000. paper mills in the world are at Corner Brook. On the east coast, St. John's, the provincial capital. Dominating the city is Signal Hill, site of the last battle in Canada between French and English soldiers. St. John's is located at the easternmost tip of North America. In 1901, it was here at the foot of Cabot's Tower that Marconi heard the faint signal of the first transatlantic wireless message. Oldest city on the continent, St. John's has witnessed the ebb and flow of history. And today the fishing boats of many nations enjoy safe anchorage in the harbor that John Cabot discovered almost 500 years ago. Battered by the sea, these ancient rocks have seen the beginning and the end of the great ice age. They are as old as the world itself. Although it is the 10th biggest island in the world, Newfoundland has only 420,000 inhabitants, scattered mainly along the coast or living in remote inland villages. It is an island of contrast, of youth and age, a land at once rich and poor. It is a land of the future, port of call for the ships and aircraft of the world. Yet it still holds dear the worthy traditions of its former times.